With me on the huddle today, we have got Neil Miller, who is a former National Party staffer, and we've got Neil Jones, former Chief of Staff to Jacinda Ardern. Hi, lads.
G'day.
Sure.
All right, so we've ended up with a couple of Neils again. We've made this mistake, so I'm going to be I'm going to be going full naming both of you. Let's start with you, Neil Jones. Now, I don't have a problem with Willie meeting with the gangs, but when I finish talking to Willie, suddenly I want to have a problem with him because I have no idea what on earth he's up to. What's the point of meeting with the gangs? What's he trying to get out of it?
I think part of it's just understanding the problem, right? Like, Willie's one of those few members of Parliament who actually understands what the world's like out there. He's spent 30 years helping gang members reform, get out of it. There's people who work on his marae who actually are former gang members, so he's making sure he understands the issue and then work on things like education, health, get people out of it. Now, it's not going to be easy, and I'm not one of those lefties who says the gangs are our mates or anything. I think what Marama Davidson did, standing in front of a big mongrel mob patch and saying the gangs are great, I think that's stupid. But I think, you've got to crack down on them, but also understand the issues, and that's what Willie's doing.
Trouble here, Neil Miller, is that because you've got Paul Hunt, the Commissioner, meeting with the gangs, you've got Marama meeting with the gangs, you've got Willie meeting with the gangs, you've got Andy Costa, the top cop, going soft on the gangs. This is giving the opposition a real foothold, right? Something to actually... They're basically leaving themselves exposed, the government here.
I think so, and I think you noticed that because Willie didn't really address many of your questions at all, but one thing that he did have was a list of names of other politicians who've met gangs, as if that's somehow the same thing. I think what's awkward is he's claiming that he's only met the gangs once officially, but his ministerial diary says at least 4 times, and probably several other times. And he's been labelled by the Prime Minister as the minister in charge of gang relations, which doesn't appear anywhere in his list of delegations. And I think it's quite worrying to have this sort of secret role.
I think that's a makey-uppy on the spot job, don't you reckon?
Yeah, because it doesn't really fit with married development, but it might fit with associate justice. But we should know about it.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Neil Jones?
Well, the guy he's met 3 times is Eugene Ryder, who's a social worker. He's had a hard life. He's had a background in the Black Power, but he does work with government, various departments. John Key had him, has met with him. There's photos of the internet of John Key with this guy. I think it's been blown a bit out of proportion.
Yeah, but don't you think, Neil Jones, perception is everything, reality is not always everything, right?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, look, the opposition are, there is an issue with gangs, and the opposition are, pointing out those problems, and there's a risk there. But, governments know that they have to engage. They have to actually do it. They could just refuse to engage and refuse to talk to anyone. But I think you do actually have to, know what's going on in the world.
Yeah, all right. Neil Miller, Nick Smith's resignation from Parliament. As a result of that, Chris Finlayson reckons that we need to have caps or a limit on how long these guys are allowed to be in Parliament. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think I was surprised at the demise of Nick Smith. I worked with him for 6 years. I'm actually surprised it took this long for there to be a grievance of that nature against him, given his method of dealing with staff members. I think that Chris Finlayson is very astute as always, and there is a case to be made for sort of, he says 15 years, and then you have to take a break and you can try and come back again if you want to. Because I think we've seen here the danger of someone that has spent virtually the entire adult life in Parliament.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, Neil Jones, of putting caps on, because what if you have somebody who's been there, 5 terms, and then you're in the middle of a crisis and they're actually the perfect person and they've got to be forced out, that kind of stuff. You have weird stuff, right?
Yeah, like Bill English came into Parliament in 1990. If
Yeah.
he had that limit, he'd have been out in 2005. He wouldn't have even been part of the key government. He'd have never been finance minister. And while I don't agree with everything Bill English did, I think we'd be poorer for it.
Yeah.
Same thing, Nanaia Mahuta. She'd have been out of Parliament in 2011, wouldn't be foreign affairs now. Jacinda would be retiring at the next election, so would Grant Robertson. So I think there could be some real unintended consequences.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, guys, we'll take a break with the pair of you, Neil Miller, Neil Jones. When we come back, we'll talk about Naomi Osaka and the geese that Waikato District Council is apparently now reviewing. Like, they just announced it, and then people got upset, and then they decided to review it so fast. Back with Neil Miller, Neil Jones. All right, Neil Miller, I'll start with you on this one. Naomi Osaka has now altogether pulled out of the French Open. Should she have?
Yeah, I think she's made a very principled call. She says she doesn't want to be a distraction. Basically, she didn't want to do interviews. Now, the issue here is that doing interviews is part of being a professional sports person at the moment. And so she was looking to break her contractual obligations because of her mental health. And I think I've got a lot of sympathy for her on that particular issue. What my issue is do we really need to have so many after-game interviews? Very rarely do they add anything to the sport. And particularly in team sports, you can send out anyone to go and talk to the camera if someone's having a bad day. But in a solo sport like tennis, you've got the person who's in a fragile state having to go up in front of the crowd and the TV cameras. And she offered to say, look, if at the end of the tournament, I'll do like a full interview. Just let me focus on the tournament. And I think maybe we should consider a bit of flexibility for cases like this.
Well, Neil Jones, yesterday probably wouldn't have had much tolerance for that as an idea, but Carl Budge reckons, and he has loads of experience running the ASB Classic. He reckons he's seen some horrific questions that have been asked of people and just a lack of knowledge about how to do things. And he thinks that there might be a bit of space for reforming the way we do the post-match press conferences. What do you reckon?
Yeah, and look, on this stuff, I think you've got to take people at their word. If she says, look, I'm finding this really hard, it's doing me mental drama, then give her the benefit of the doubt. And actually, I agree with Neil. I think who cares if a tennis player doesn't want to talk to media? She doesn't owe us anything. She's not the Prime Minister.
Care.
Yeah, but that's a contractual thing with her. I think for the rest of us should give her a break. She's not a public figure in terms of being accountable. She's not the Prime Minister. She's just someone who's very good at hitting a ball over a net.
Yeah. Do people care though, Neil Jones?
I don't think they should care. You want to watch her play tennis. It's not. Why on earth would you care what she says?
I'm just fans of tennis, mate. Neil Miller, okay, the situation with the Waikato District Council, now they were planning to poison the geese, and there are a heck of a lot of them, right? There are 180 geese. They were going to lure them in with the geese thinking they were getting treats, and then they were going to lace them with poison and kill them all. They have now subsequently revised this, and they're going to review whether this is the way to do things. Does it feel to you a little bit like some townies have got upset about this?
I think a lot of people got upset about it, and the council is backing up because they know what a terrible look it is.
Is it a terrible look, or do you just need to get rid of the geese?
Yeah, luring geese to their death with poison pellets is like a terrible fairy tale gone wrong. I think that most New Zealanders would be on Team Geese.
Oh, come on, Neil Miller. This is how you kill possums and stuff, right? How do you think it works?
Geese are cuter than possums.
Neil Jones, what do you reckon?
I think those geese have had a very nice life, and if you look at it, if we're going to get worried about it, there's 100 million chickens killed everywhere in New Zealand, 50 billion worldwide, and they live in pretty horrible conditions, and we all go around eating KFC.
Yes.
So I think let's not worry about 180 geese who've had a nice little life pooing on the grass by a lake.
You reckon? So off to the slaughter? You reckon?
Oh, I'm just not too worried about it. Rehome them if you want, poison them if you want. I'm not too worried.
Yeah, Neil Miller, are you going to revise your position on this? Because you're awfully soft on it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an animal lover.
Currently sitting with a puppy on your lap.
Hey.
No, I had a cat earlier. It wasn't my cat, but yeah. These geese are eating grass and they're having to go to the bathroom on a soccer field. How degrading is that? They have had a tough life.
My gosh! Wow. That is actually a disorder, I think. Neil Jones, are you sitting with a puppy on your lap?
I am. A new puppy. Her name's Luna. She's very cute.
There you go.
She's 10 weeks old.
I knew one of you had it. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it. It's great to chat to you. That's Neil Miller, Neil Jones, our huddle this evening.